My mother left me and my younger brother to fend for ourselves while she spent nights at bars after her divorce. But at my baby shower, she claimed she struggled to raise 2 kids single-handedly, so I called her out publicly. I need to post this anonymously because people in my life use Reddit, and I don't want this linked to my main account. I'll keep this straightforward without decorative formatting or headings to match the raw, factual style of posts I've seen here where people share their stories and seek judgment or advice. I was 6 when my parents split, and the custody arrangement shaped everything that followed. My father managed finances, school forms, transportation, and maintained consistent routines. Time with him involved homework, sports, grocery shopping, laundry, and meals that were prepared, eaten, and cleaned up without fanfare. My mother said the divorce shattered her because of my father's infidelity, and she needed time for herself and her social circle. She insisted she wouldn't stay home alone and deserved a life. During her custody time, she'd go out, leaving me to look after my brother, who's 4 years younger. I handled his needs for the next day, checking his bag, washing clothes, preparing meals, setting out outfits. By 14, I didn't need reminders because no one else was there to manage it. My brother, at 10, needed rides, signed forms, lunches, clean clothes, and someone to ensure he got to bed. Our mother would text from bars, saying she'd be back soon, then send another message later, then go silent. I stopped waiting up because staying awake meant starting the next day exhausted, struggling through school or practice with a foggy mind. So I set alarms, created systems, memorized bus schedules, tracked phone numbers, deadlines, locker codes, and notes about field trip fees or clinic hours. My father didn't badmouth my mother or drag me into his emotions about her actions. I didn't share much about her place because I worried that if he pursued legal action, the custody split might not change, and we'd be stuck in tense exchanges while they battled. I wanted to avoid being caught in the middle. He paid child support, showed up, and checked on us. I said we were fine to keep things calm and maintain the structure I'd built. If you're wondering about other relatives, they were present but didn't intervene because the custody order was set. My mother claimed she had everything under control, and I was managing well enough that no one wanted to disrupt the fragile balance I'd created. I handled food and money by studying store ads, buying affordable ingredients, and cooking quick meals that kept us fueled for school, activities, and the next day. I learned to stretch instant foods into something substantial, and I'd keep a pot of rice ready in the fridge for fast dinners after late practices. This wasn't noble, it was survival, and I'm not writing this for applause. It's just what happened, and what I had to do to avoid constant crises. I skipped social events and friend hangouts because leaving my brother alone at night meant he'd be truly alone, and I knew how heavy it felt to sit in silence, waiting. I wouldn't let him endure more of that. When high school ended, college plans came up, but I couldn't leave because my brother still needed someone handling the daily grind. My father offered to seek more custody, but I asked him to hold off to avoid court battles that might not shift the schedule. We agreed I'd take local classes, work nearby, and keep things stable until my brother was more independent. I did that, and when he got his license and started staying mostly at our father's, I moved into a shared apartment and focused on my own path. I carried those old habits but began to relax, no longer tracking my mother's whereabouts or budgeting for school supplies until the next support payment. Fast forward to now. I'm pregnant, and my partner and I organized a baby shower with both families. I hoped we could avoid old drama since the focus was on the baby, diapers, bottles, essentials, and who'd bring food. I told the host, a friend, to skip speeches, toasts, or games requiring a microphone. We set a short time frame, and things went smoothly at first. My parents were in the same room but didn't interact, which was fine since the goal was a calm event. Near the end, my mother started telling a group that she raised 2 kids alone after my father's affair left her with nothing. She spoke loudly, glancing around, and continued. My father, nearby, stayed silent. I saw people nodding, and I knew staying quiet would mean endorsing a version of my life that erased countless nights I managed, the work I put in, and the support my father provided. I quickly decided, either I speak up now, or I'd be correcting this story in private conversations for years. I chose to interrupt, saying clearly that I raised myself and my brother during her time, that my father never abandoned us, paid support, and was present. I said anyone curious about who cooked, signed forms, arranged rides, called the bus company, sat in clinics, met teachers, or ensured food was on the table could ask me. I said I wouldn't let my child grow up in a narrative that credits someone who didn't do the work. My mother called me ungrateful and said I embarrassed her. She left with her friends and didn't contact me for 2 weeks. She texted the next day, saying I'd gone too far and demanding an apology before she'd speak to me again. I didn't reply because apologizing for the truth would undo my progress, and I needed to focus on the birth and preparing for those early weeks. I created a visit schedule, told both families there'd be no unannounced drop-ins, visits would be short, and no baby photos could be shared without our permission. My father agreed and asked how else he could help. My mother stayed silent. A week before my due date, she requested a meeting near her place. She said she'd reflected on the shower and admitted her words were inaccurate. She acknowledged leaving us unsupervised many nights, using bars and friends to cope with the divorce and betrayal. She said she was depressed, felt hollow, and avoided being alone. She admitted she should have sought help but didn't due to cost and stigma. She asked to be a reliable grandmother and earn trust. I told her I accept her admission but won't rewrite history, and any role she has will depend on consistent, small actions over time. I said I wouldn't manage her mental health or act as her counselor, and if she needs help, she should see professionals. I set strict visit rules and warned that breaking them would pause her access. She agreed, cried, and I didn't comfort her because I'm done managing her emotions. My father visited with supplies and asked if I wanted to discuss the incident. I shared the cafe talk, and he said he felt guilt at the shower because his affair triggered the divorce. He apologized for not pushing harder when he suspected instability at my mother's. He said he feared a court fight would fail, risking less time with us and disrupting our lives. We talked, and I said I don't want to rehash old decisions every time something happens. I need him focused on our current needs. He agreed and asked me to call him out if his guilt leads to overcompensating. I appreciated that because it addressed a cycle I want to avoid, where emotions create actions that burden me with more work. The shower sparked questions from family who'd heard conflicting stories over the years. I told them I'm not punishing my mother or excusing my father, and I'm not ranking them. My focus is creating a stable baseline for my child based on real actions, keeping our home free of drama and revisionist tales. I said I'm open to those who show up reliably and closed to those who don't, and if anyone pushes me to reconcile for their own comfort, they can stop because I'm not doing that work. So, AITA for calling her out? Update. People asked what happened immediately after the shower if my brother reached out, and if there was fallout. My brother called 2 days later, saying he froze when our mother spoke and wished he'd back me up to shut it down. He texted her that night, saying he agreed with Verm and remembered countless nights when I was in charge, and he wouldn't tolerate future stories that erased my efforts. He asked for the postpartum boundaries I'd set so he could enforce them if anyone pushed when I was resting or unavailable. I sent him the schedule, rules about short visits, photo consent, and no social media posts, and he promised to support me in any conflict. As for fallout, some cousins asked my mother for her side in group chats, and she said she was done with ungrateful children. One cousin messaged me, saying the divorce left my mother with limited resources, and going out for social support was normal. I replied that socializing isn't the issue. Leaving kids alone night after night is, and I'm not debating it further. My father didn't contact my mother or ask me to mediate. He focused on practical help and let the social dynamics settle. This kept me from being dragged into a messenger role I don't want in this new phase. In the week after the shower, I finalized our birth and first 2 weeks plan. My partner and I set up a system for meal deliveries, quiet days without visitors, and specific tasks for those who asked to help. We wrote it down because verbal plans fall apart, and in person, people often just want to hold the baby and chat when we need dishes done, laundry folded, trash taken out, or errands run. We shared the plan with both families and stuck to it. Those who followed got invited back, those who didn't got fewer slots. This wasn't about punishment, it was about protecting our small family during an intense time. My mother texted after our meeting, agreeing to follow the rules, not bring friends, make speeches, or share photos. I asked her to confirm she'd arrive and leave on time and ask before holding the baby. She agreed. I avoided long back and forths because they often spiral into old complaints that waste time and yield nothing. I wanted every interaction with her tied to specific, trackable actions. Then the birth happened. Labor was typical, pain, decisions, monitoring, checks. We kept the hospital quiet, no drop-ins. My father visited during designated hours, held the baby, asked what I needed, then went to our place to tidy up. My mother came the next day in her assigned slot, bringing a small bag of diapers, wipes, and a brief note saying she wanted to improve. She asked to hold the baby, and I agreed. She held the baby, didn't mention the past, the shower, or my father, and didn't take out her phone without permission. After 20 minutes, she returned the baby and left so I could rest. This was the first visit in years where I didn't feel like I was managing her emotions or steering the room around her needs. We went home and started our schedule. People came and left on time, doing assigned tasks. We kept a fridge log for feedings, diapers, meds, and chores. This helped because when someone asked how to help, we pointed to the list instead of inventing tasks while juggling a crying baby. My mother visited during her slots, asked what to do, and I assigned laundry, bottle washing, and surface cleaning. She did them. She didn't critique our routines, offer unsolicited advice, or try to take over the baby. She set a timer and left when it rang. I tracked each successful visit because I want to judge based on evidence, not optimism. Update 2. People asked if I'd do therapy with my mother, push her into treatment, or manage her health. I told her I'd provide a list of providers and an intake link if she wanted therapy, and that's my limit. I sent a list matching her insurance and said she could share if she scheduled something or keep it private. Her call. 2 weeks later, she texted that she'd done an intake and a first session, which was tough because the therapist asked her to reflect on her post-divorce coping and its impact on us. She said she realized she'd told herself a story where she was our main provider, even though the facts don't align. I said I heard her and would watch her actions now. I set a childcare rule. Only my father, brother, and 2 close friends can be alone with the baby for now. My mother can visit with me present and help with tasks. If she stays consistent for months, we'll reassess. She asked if she could take the stroller for a short walk with me there. I agreed to a quick loop around the block together, and it went fine. She didn't push for more, which I appreciated because pushing would have set us back. On money, she offered to contribute. I said a small monthly transfer to the baby's savings account would help. I asked her not to buy gear without checking because space and routines matter more than random items. She agreed, set up a transfer, and brought consumables instead of big items. During visits, she sometimes reads to the baby while I rest, which helps more than flashy gestures. I value help that fits our system. I told my father not to give my mother leniency because of his guilt over the affair. I asked him not to overpraise basic effort or discuss her progress in a way that pressures me to show gratitude. He understood, keeps comments neutral and task-focused, and avoids contact with her to prevent triangulating me. He focuses on errands, rides, and small home fixes that matter daily. When he does something, he logs it on the board and moves on. This keeps our interactions clear and practical. Some extended family members who have opinions about the situation told me to forgive quickly because life is short. I said I'm not running a forgiveness race or working on a deadline. I'm managing a newborn household and building a steady rhythm. Those who support that are welcome now, those who add tension aren't. I'm direct in texts and in person, and I don't argue after stating the rule. People adapt or step back, both are fine. Update 3. A third update because a test of the rules came up at a naming gathering at my partner's family home, where both parents were invited for a short window. My partner's family wanted a brief event where relatives could visit, say a few words of support, eat, and leave. We sent the same rules and time limits, stating no speeches or toasts about the past from my parents. My mother asked to say a 1-minute blessing, and I said no open mic moments. She could share words privately. At the event, she arrived on time, sat quietly, helped serve food, and didn't try to tell stories to my in-laws. My father arrived on time, sat with my brother, and stayed in his lane. Midway through, a relative thanked both parents for raising me. I felt the room nudge toward a familiar pattern where people expect a response from the older generation. My mother began to speak, but I gave her a look, shook my head, and said we're keeping the focus on the baby. She stopped and sat back. My father stayed silent. The event continued. It seems minor, but it was a moment where an old habit could have taken over, and it didn't. Another test came a week later when my mother arrived 15 minutes late to a visit and asked to stay longer to make up time. I said no, end times matter for naps, feeds, and our sanity. She blamed traffic and asked for flexibility. I said traffic is part of life, and the rule is about start and end times. If she wants more time, she needs to prove consistency across multiple visits, then we can talk adjustments. She left on time and didn't argue. That was a data point I noted because follow-through outweighs promises. People asked if I'll rebuild a closer bond with my mother beyond structured visits. I'm not making commitments because I don't base relationships on hope. I base them on actions over time. I've seen small progress. She keeps tasks going without seeking praise. She hasn't asked to share photos. She hasn't revisited the shower story. She's started therapy. She's avoided conflict with my father. These are steps. I can acknowledge them while holding my boundaries. My brother has embraced being an uncle in a way that shows he's shedding the old, parent-like role. He visits weekends, does assigned errands, cooks a pot of food, and labels containers, saving us days of effort. He holds the baby, follows instructions, and tells me to rest while he cleans. I told him seeing him in this role, free of past burdens, is unforgettable. He said he feels the same and is glad we're sharing family moments without carrying others' responsibilities. People asked if I'll accept my mother's apology as enough. I don't put much stock in apologies without sustained action and time. I'm not keeping score, but I'm tracking behavior because without that, I get lost in emotions, which leads to doing others' work. I'm done with that, and I won't raise my child in that haze. I'll keep our home predictable, and anyone who wants to be part of it will fit that rhythm. Since this is Reddit, and people ask for judgments, I'll pose a question. I don't need a right or wrong verdict, but I'd like input on 2 upcoming decisions. One is whether to allow my mother a short solo stroller outing in the next few weeks if she keeps arriving on time and following rules. I'm inclined to wait longer because once she's out with the baby, I can't control what she says to others or if she takes and shares photos. I can set rules, but outside our home, they're harder to enforce. I'd prefer more supervised hours first. The other question is whether to invite both parents to the same future kid events, like birthdays or school activities, or alternate them. My gut says alternate for now because joint events invite stories, comments, or drama, and I want to avoid that in the early years. Update 4. 2 months passed, and my mother continued therapy, based on what she shared, and arrived on time for most visits. She missed 2, one with notice, one without. For the unnotified miss, I didn't reschedule that week and pushed her next visit back a week as a consequence, since my time isn't a flexible slot others can drop or fill at will. She accepted it without complaint, and for later visits, she arrived early and waited in her car until the start time, showing she gets that the rule matters. At home, she kept doing tasks and didn't interfere with baby care unless asked. She once tried to adjust a swaddle, and I told her to stop. She did and hasn't tried again. One incident tested the system. At a family dinner not at our place, she told someone nearby that she did what she had to after the divorce to survive, and that people don't grasp betrayal's toll. I overheard, walked over, and said that topic is off limits, and if it continued, we'd leave. She said it was just talk. I said that talk breaks the rule against performing history in shared spaces. I took my partner and the baby, said goodbye to the host, and left. I texted her later that visits were paused for 2 weeks, and another incident would reset her access to 0. She replied the next day, apologizing and promising not to repeat it. After the pause, she came to her next slot and followed rules. My father has stayed on track without issues. He hasn't used my mother's actions to comment on who's better or worse. He hasn't asked for more time than we can give. He hasn't tried to make up for past mistakes with big gestures that create work. He keeps things steady, which is what I need. Once, while I was feeding the baby, he started to mention regretting the affair. I said I didn't have the capacity for that discussion and we could talk later if he needed. He said okay, switched to washing bottles, and dropped it. I've had to tell some relatives to stop pushing for a photo with both parents. I don't do that. I take separate photos, don't post them, and don't let others post. When they say they want a family picture for memories, I say my focus is my child's routine, not their album. I don't apologize. I state it clearly and move on. Fewer words work better because arguments grow in empty space.